So most of us have those kind of stories. What is usually the right framework when you're purchasing land? Because it does still seem like maybe you can get 20, 30, 40,000 cedis to buy land. I may not have $100,000 or $150,000 to buy a one-bedroom apartment in Airport or East Legon.
Hi, good evening. I have a very deep voice, so I will not raise my voice. Okay, so Michael, are you Michael? Okay, so buy land. You know, he says you shouldn't buy land, but I say you should buy land. And then Eddie talked about, this hills, adding hills to places. I think last year I said something like, it used to be called Nanachrome.
Oh, Nanachrome, East Legon Hills,
and
right?
And it became East Legon Hills. I don't see hills there anyway, but so... Brandon. So we're saying that, when the director was speaking, he talked about buying land, they were talking about due diligence. And we're saying that it depends on where you're buying land. And we also said that, I always make this example, that even if Jesus Christ became an Accra boy, and he decides to sell land to you in Accra, you're supposed to do due diligence, because you have persons doing multiple sales and all that. And due diligence includes what the director talked about, going to the land physically, asking questions, and then even trying to take possession or exercise some form of possession. And then the fact that somebody, it's commonplace to hear somebody say, I want land title document or land title certificate. It's always the case that you have somebody, the director talked about the root of title. It's possible that you have somebody who went ahead of you, got interest in the land, but you don't have money to do registration, but there's an indenture. The rich man came later, gave a higher price or a premium, took the same piece of document, went to register, and got title. It does not give him a superior title. So if they're able to adjudicate it in court, and it is determined that the first in time is a poor man or poor woman, your certificate will be expunged from the registry of the Lands Commission. So we're saying that, and then last year, I think there was a proposal made that if you're buying land, it involves money. And then once you're going to expend money, use the escrow account concept. Don't give any money to any landowner. The escrow account is a temporary holding account, like a third-party account. It's only for that particular purpose. The owner has comfort that there's money resting somewhere. If I do the right thing, I think I'll be paid. And the one who is taking the risk and giving out money knows that my money is resting. So until I take possession, I'm satisfied that everything is fine. My money doesn't go anywhere. So that risk element is taken out. So we're saying that ask questions, exercise some form of possession, and then don't rely on certificates, because the certificate here could be referring to a land on the other side. So it's always prudent to use your own independent surveyor, take your own points or cadastral, go run an official search, and then make a determination as to whether you want to acquire that land or not. But it's still safe to buy land. It depends on whether you're buying through Susuli, Kumi, and partners. Or, because, if you're buying from an estate developer, you didn't have all that big space to do garden for the kids, do swimming pool. It's just narrow. It's called a what? Those small apartments, they don't make friends, they don't have neighbors. They are neighbors, but they don't have neighbors. They don't see them. So we're saying that it's still safe to buy land, but just buy it properly.
Okay, so thank you so much, Kofi. Estate planning. I've heard so many issues of somebody's father or parent or somebody passes away, and there's always so many issues, especially when the person dies without a will. Just to give us a quick overview, when it comes to Ghana, what is inheritance? Is it inheritance law? What happens if somebody has property, has land, and they pass away without a will? Just give us a bit of an overview, Oliver.
I would get to that point, but let me also take our minds to this issue about land and why is land always a big issue. You need land to put up a property. And the land needs to be yours. You need to own the land to will it. Otherwise, it cannot be transferred. The property cannot be transferred. And when we're talking about land, and by extension, properties that you can bequeath to people in your will, first ask yourself, what is land? Some of you here, we are up here as those talking the laws, but there are legal minds here. You won't believe it. Some of them can speak to the topic more than. In our part of the land, in our part of the country, in our part of the world, land ownership is so complicated. The definition of land goes beyond the land itself, which is the tangible. It goes into the abstract. The ownership, the documentations are, and the character of the owners. The dynamism of transfer of ownership from government and all those kind of things. We need to really look at that. Now, in Ghana, when it comes to inheritance, it was a situation that a lot of persons did not will their properties. And guilty among those is one of the best justices that we have ever had. And most that are guilty are even lawyers and judges who do not write their will. Now, the will is, let me use the word lightly, governed by the Wills Act. Now, there was this mischief when people were not willing their property or writing their will, that family members who were influential or probably who were supposed to have helped that property owner when he was in school will just come to take all over the property, and some children who are deserving of good care suffered. And some have suffered even generations. Some have gone mad out of frustration. There's a lot of things that we see. With land matters, you see somebody sitting in front of you in your office. In consultation, they just go like, I'm feeling pain in my head. It is not only money you lose, you can also lose your health. And so they came out with this law, the PNDC law 111 that we all hear of, to make sure that this mischief is addressed. So that necessarily spouses, children, and even extended families can take part of the property in case whoever they depend on passed on. You don't necessarily need to be the person's dependent to be a part of the will or to inherit anything from the will. And so, by law, humans as we are, no matter how you educate us, we may not be careful enough or organized enough to make sure that we die with a will. Tomorrow, this thing when I'm writing this, there's some psychological tone to it. You are writing your will at 40-something. What is this? There is something about it. And I don't blame us humans for not wanting to die. I don't know exactly where we'll be here for long while if we have the reasons. But if you write a will, if you have a will, the court would not impute anything. It is what was intended by whoever wrote the will that the court will deal with. No morals, no any other thing. The only thing is that you can technically contest the will itself on the basis that it was fraudulent, etc. Or you go on the technical face of it and say that, look, by statute, it is supposed to have been signed by at least 2 witnesses. And let us be reminded, and I would like to reiterate this, that the witnesses do not need to know the content of your will. And so this is my will that I'm writing, and I have this property, and this my friend, I don't want him to know. He's the only one I trust, that he will go and see this thing. And that has been some of the deterrents that, unfortunately, make people die intestate. So with properties, there are two sides of it. If you fail to write a will, the law has written a will for you, which is the intestate succession law. But then is it not just best that you bequeath your properties to whoever you wanted when you died? So generally, that is the phase, the problems and the mischief that the law says.
Okay, I wanted to bring Kofi in. We'll go to questions very soon. Now, I know most people who have... So I know when it comes to the legality of land, most people who have bought land, there's always this issue of land guards. And land guards, whether we like it or not, seem to kind of be a law unto themselves. I've seen judgments on legal judgments where land guards have gone and knocked down and not upheld the law. From a legal standpoint in Ghana, we know we have street justice and we've got the law itself. What do you say to somebody who gets himself in a situation like that when, land guards are, come in to essentially seek for money they're not supposed to be paying? And what does the law, where does the law stand when it comes to things like that?
Let me say something before my colleague Tutu adds this thing. Guarding a land, there is nothing illegal about guarding a land. So when you say land guard, I don't know what it means. It is what you do whilst doing that. And it flows from the Constitution, the protection of property. The protection of property is also fundamental to the development of any nation. Superpower, whatever, it is the individuals that build a nation. So it's these bits of acquisition that what we build with. It flows also from the Constitution and into the criminal code that if you have a property, you can protect it even to the point of killing, please. It is there, it has not changed. Yes.
Really?
Yes. It is.
That's you, but not having land guards, because we always hear land guard issues in
and your
Accra.
assigns and caretakers would exercise the same authority as given you by the Constitution to protect your property. So if I wake up at midnight and there is this giant in my hallway and I have a gun and I shoot him down, which kind of law is this that is coming against me for that?
I just want to jump in there. Is that why Ghana or Accra seems to have so many land guard issues? Because this is very new to me, by the way.
So
just for some clarity, because a lot of us we don't know.
I know the law is against the production of land guards, as in I think it's in Act 2020, but I'll have to cross-check. Is it 2020 or 1039? 2020, okay. So it's a case that we know what land guards do, because they maim people and all that, And then if it happens, I think the jail term is about 7 years or something. And it's either if the landowner who contracted the services of land guard, they call it the production of land guards. Or so the land guard is punishable, then they are vicariously liable. So it affects the two sides. So that's the case. So it's one thing saying I'm on my land, defending my land, and maybe I'm armed with a gun and you try to threaten me. And then in self-defense, that's why we have murder and then manslaughter. Manslaughter is when you defend yourself. You're killed in self-defense. So it could be a case that let's say somebody lives in Accra and has guards in Kaswa who come around to patrol lands and seize lands from people. Usually those people do things where they know they don't have interest in the land. But if you have interest in the land, it could be your son, it could be your cousin, family relations and all that. It's a bit technical, but then if you threaten me to the point of death, I have every right to defend myself. But when you have people harassing people on land and all that, you notice that in context, what we have as land guards, you have people coming who are not related to the owner in any form. and they just can be employed, they make money, and they even go around are the same people who guard ballots, the same land guard. So it's just like guarding your land, but in context, the kind of people we produce who cause harm to people on the land. And it's punishable to a jail term of about, I think the maximum term is 7 years. And it's applicable to the landowner himself, the one who employs the services of those land guards.
Okay, because I just got a bit scared when we're now, I was like, I know Michael's face. Michael's like, yeah, don't buy land, buy real estate. No, because now even me, I'm scared. But when you want to do it the safer way, leave the land alone. Go to Gold Key, Depth Tracker, Clifton Homes, Peace of Mind. It's still advisable you do follow the right legal channels. Kofi, can you please just talk us through, for those of us, especially sometimes diaspora, younger people who want to get on the ladder, to protect yourself, because we have reputable companies here, but not everybody can go to a Gold Key to start with. So what is the right procedure?
As in taking, possessing your land?
Buying from the real estate. Like, what would you recommend when you're buying from a real estate company to make sure that they also don't take you for a ride? None of our exhibitors, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have them here. So what we do is that I think we've done a couple of purchases for clients, and then we're saying that the track record is there. There's always a background. I'm even doing due diligence on a couple of companies for an Ivorian group, and you're supposed to know whether, let's even say you have the property developed. And we know in Ghana we have powerful people, or it's typical in African culture that the big man. In Nigeria, they call them chief or odogu, And we're saying that Honorable says we can take this land. Some are even Ramsar sites, which are internationally recognized to be kept the way they are. But you have people who take over those lands and they build. So when you're going to buy land through a lawyer, they talk about the collateral registry, check whether it's subject to some litigation or the lease. So apart from the lease that is left on the land, some people just see, it's beautiful. They don't check whether the lease is short, whether it's coming from a non-Ghanaian, which limits you to, it's called an assignment. So you're just completing the remainder of the lease, and it may be very short. And then sometimes you also check to see whether that particular property is situated in an area zoned for some other purposes. So it could be an industrial zone, but the rich man was able to acquire it, and you're also living there. A day will come, governments will switch, and things can happen to you. So I think it has to do with due diligence. I can't go into the details because of time, but then it's beautiful, but do a background check. Check the root of that. How did they get their interest? Whether they are in court for some other reason. You could have very big things. Some people will say, because the land has been occupied, you have so many big buildings, so the court cannot make an order for demolition. That's not true. I think we saw what happened at Trade Fair. We saw some around, and all it can happen once the court gives order. And the party, the one whose interest has been favored, wants to exercise or, what's it called, to, when the court gives order, you're supposed to execute the order. So enforcing the order has been given by the court. It could be demolition. It could be for them to atone interest or tenancy to the original owners. The last time there was an issue it was like 42 years, 72,000 acres between Damfa all the way to some other place. It was a Supreme Court decision. And it's affected, I think that's the boys' school and I've forgotten. But it was a decision that changed from one family to the other. But that particular matter was in court for 42 years. And people have been on the land for so long. People have lived, they were born, they grew, they went to university on that land. And they need to atone interest to the original landowners. So those are some of the interests or issues we checked before we recommend a particular property for a client. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, I think we are done on this for today. So I just want to say a big thank you to our legal minds, Oliver Susuli Esquire, founder and managing partner of Susuli, Kumi and Partners, and Kofi Day Tutu Esquire, legal professional with Susuli, Kumi and Partners. So thank you. Can we hear it for them? Thank you so much.